Hey everybody, welcome back to our film of the week. Hope you guys have been enjoying the content channel as of late. Lots of content on the channel lately, and hopefully you guys are enjoying the plethora of content circling the channel. I will be heading off to vacation, not this weekend, but the following weekend. So hopefully I'll have some content procured for you guys, just so there's some stuff to watch during the weekend, that specific weekend. But we are back for another film of the week, and we're going to be looking into some uh, Nolan for this week because I have been thinking about this film a little bit and figured why not just to do a film of the week to it, just because it's been on my mind lately and would like to discuss said film. That film that we're going to be discussing today is Tenet, which was written and directed by Christopher Nolan, released in 2020. So this was during, of course, the pandemic era. When we're still in the pandemic, but the severities of the pandemic, was 2020, and this was the first, according to the Wikipedia here, the first tentpole to be released in theaters during the pandemic, and this stars John David Washington, and he plays the protagonist. And he is he works for the CIA, and he helps help in a covert operation. And he is eventually assigned to a mission that involves him learning a little bit about the mechanics of that time itself, because the threat that he is facing is that of a person that also operates within the parameters of specific times. And this character, played by Kenneth Branagh, and he, with the assistance of Robert Pattinson, embark on a quest to find an artifact, and also finding the whereabouts of this specific character, played by Kenneth Branagh. And in that, we see the technical aspects of the film really come into fruition in the forefront. Within the parameters of time, things start moving forward, other things move backwards, opposites, in terms of how their worlds operate. Certain things go forward, certain things go backwards. And as he goes through this mission, he learns that maybe, in fact, there is more to the mission than he lets on, and perhaps even greater significance to his own self. So Nolan, as it is, I think, is a hit or miss for me. I think that he's done some very interesting work. Most recently, Oppenheimer, I thought, was a good film from his. There's other films of his that I enjoy. Obviously, the Dark Knight trilogy I found to be intriguing. I'm not crazy about some of the other films that people quite love of his, that of like Inception. I'm not particularly a fan of, which may in fact be informative of my opinion of Tenet, which we'll get into in a second. But I wasn't crazy about Memento either. But Nolan, when he works, in case like Interstellar, for instance, which I think is his best work, I think that he really, really shines in a lot of the technical aspects, and in some cases when it comes to resonance, Interstellar being an example of that. But here's the thing when discussing Tenet. So apparently it's had a lot of divisive responses, and some people, have their opinions on it. Some people enjoy it, some people don't enjoy it. And when I first saw it, I found it to be intriguing, mainly by aesthetic, and that was before I really got into film proper, when I was really looking into details, looking into how things play within storytelling. And after a few months of because that was when I was also in college, and I was starting to learn a little more about narrative and structure, and and by just appetite, my feeling on the film really changed once I started to really think about just how things are lining up and how ultimately the story plays out. And in my opinion, anyway, I think that of the films that I've seen of Nolan's, I think that Tenet would be one of my least favorites, and it's one of the films of his that I would choose to not revisit, because by the title alone, you can understand the approach to the filmmaking, which is that it is a film that is led on gimmicks and led on technical ideas. I mean, even when you go look at interviews with Nolan, he just pretty much touches on that of technicalities, talking about how things move forward and backwards, and the interpretive ideas of how time operates, and discussing these two theories that that people have about time, and using that as the formation of the technical aspects of Tenet. And in that, you get a film that is more visually, in some cases, visually intriguing, but also quite messy in terms of how it lays out a narrative and a visual presentation of things. And by story as well, it also gets incredibly messy once these visual fronts take shape. And it's not in the case to where it is a abstract approach to where there's interpretive language. It's just quite literally with what is being represented within the confines of what Nolan is trying to do. In crafting and utilizing these two theories of time and having them play simultaneously to each other, it's a film that operates on a hypothesis and a theory, and in that, it's not something that is that is grounded or consistent. It's something that always feels at odds with itself, and I never feel like I'm actually getting a sense of momentum as much as I'm always sitting in a sense of doubt, and not in a sense of doubt that feels warranted, but a sense of doubt that makes me always confused and questioning of the vision itself. And that even extends further to the performances, which, the performances themselves, are fine, but there's they're fine in that they, that they're capable performances, performers themselves. Rob Pattinson's, I always find him to be intriguing. John David Washington does fine. Elizabeth Debicki, who is the female, is the lead female of the film. I think she's rather interesting as well. But it's just that the more that I discuss the film, the less that I find of it. And even talking of the synopsis of the film, my head actually started to hurt a little bit because of just trying to comprehend the actual narrative itself, what we're trying to get at. I know there's some kind of MacGuffin that they have to get, and then Kenneth Branagh is trying to intercept this at the same time. But it just doesn't really amount to much at the end of the day. It's a film really technically driven, and narratively speaking, it is very, very muddled. And it might make sense to Nolan, but it isn't a case of... It's not a case of like Interstellar, where at some points it is knowledge of subjects that may in fact give more depth to its storytelling. It's not that I just don't understand the science of it. It's that it is quite literally what he is utilizing. It's not stuff that is set in stone. It's not stuff that is that has been confirmed. It's all theoretical. And when you put that in the confines of a film, it can work, but you have to be able to give room for rationale for understanding. And when you just let these two sorts of ideas just kind of coexist, what you're doing is actually creating something that is a lot more confusing as a result and not as cohesive, and less of a desire to really understand it as time goes on. So I think it's a very messy foundation, and by how it overall just plays, you just feel like you're always at odds with it. It never ever feels as if that you actually have some kind of firm grasp to what is going on. And again, it's not in the case of like an abstract type of storytelling where there's always another little wrinkle that comes that gives you a different perspective of things. It's not like that sort of attitude, and it may in fact be that people may frame it that way, but it's not. And it's not to where it's something like Inception, which Inception even has a line of logic to it, but I didn't care for that film because of just by nature what is being made. Again, it's something that feels more technically driven than anything else. And Tenet is definitely sharing in that spirit, except the difference being is that there isn't a consistent understanding of its technical ideas or its technical approaches to its subjects. So I think that it just has visually, there's a lot there. I'm not going to sit there and say that on a visual front, like some of the view, like just, like the one shot of like when the building, comes back up and then all of a sudden a part of it explodes. Like, I'm not saying that it doesn't have interesting imagery going on, but my problems with that is like that specific scene. When I look at that, I just look at it and I go, okay, how did that work? Like that's where my brain would go with that. Not like, oh wow, it's really cool looking. It's more like, okay, what does that mean? And the film doesn't really give a lot of explanation. It's not that I need a film to literally speak it out for me. It's a film that just needs to find a way to make its visual aspects more expressive, and it's just not really. It's pretty mute in terms of what I can glean from that aesthetic. And I wish I could speak more to the story, but the aesthetic plays to it a lot, and unfortunately it creates a lot of questions, a lot of inconsistencies, and just a lot of doubts about what is going on. And it, again, just does not feel like it is in the vein of abstract storytelling. It just feels more in the vein of messy and incomplete and insubstantial. Just all those sort of phrases just really fit in my feeling about Tenet. So the title itself, I feel, very much just describes what the film is about. What the film's mindset is. It's to be gimmicky, it's to be technical, and less to do with storytelling and being in the vein of consistency. So I was not thrilled by the film, and as more time goes on, I find a lot of issues with it, and yeah, I don't think that it's well made, and I think that there's I think that just by design, I think that it's an interesting concept, but per approach, I just think that it's very, very flawed, and it creates more and more, just creates less of a conversation of storytelling and more of a conversation of how to not marry technical ambition with storytelling ambitions. Because what you get here is something just pretty messy, in my personal opinion. So those are my thoughts on Tenet. I think it's not that great. It's pretty messy. It's pretty, I would say, kind of all over the place because of just by what I'm able to grasp from it. It just doesn't have, I feel, a great firm hand to what it's wanting to tell. It just feels like it's very drifty, and like kind of just, just very distant, very just of its own thing, of its own accord, and it's not wanting to invite us into its understandings of its subject matters. And when you do get a glimpse of its understandings or of its rationales, it's all theoretical, and it's not anything that really is set in stone, which creates more doubts and less care as a result. So those are my thoughts on Tenet. You guys, what are your thoughts on Tenet if you guys checked it out? I saw it in theaters. I remember vaguely seeing it with a friend, and we were trying to decipher the visual variety as well. But as time went on, I was just like, I just don't think I actually care to really figure it out personally. But you guys, what are your thoughts on Tenet if you guys have seen it? Do you guys like it? Do you guys not like it? Where would you rank it amongst Nolan's films? And so that's going to be it for this video, guys. Thank you guys for tuning in. And until then, I will catch you guys in the next video. Bye.